Good morning, Chef Gene. Today's demo will be about a French rolled omelet. Let's talk a little bit about the characteristics that we're looking for in the omelet. First of all, the omelet should have no color on the outside. It should be cigar or pointed on both ends in shape. And when we go to taste this omelet and cut into it, it should have a slight oozy, creamy texture coming out of the omelet. That's a properly made French rolled omelet. We're going to be adding some flavors of my choice into the omelet today. I prefer to use Fiend's herbs, chervil, chives, parsley, and tarragon. The parsley I'm using is Italian flat leaf parsley, just another personal favorite of mine. Also, I like to have black truffles in my omelet. It just brings out a little more flavor. So I have truffle salt. And lastly, white pepper. Whenever we make sauces that are white in color, such as bechamel or Mornay sauce, in this case eggs, we don't want to see the flakes of the pepper in the eggs. We want the eggs to stand alone. Also, 3 large eggs will be what we're putting in that omelet today. And then I'll be starting in the very beginning of the demo with mounting whole butter into the pan. One other thing that I'd like to talk about today also is people ask me, what's the application of making a French rolled omelet, chef? When we go to restaurants, we see a half folded omelet. It has color on it, and that's what's characteristically served to us these days. Well, the significance of a French rolled omelet, in my case and in cases of chefs that are classically trained, is that the chef who I'm interviewing with wants to see my techniques. He wants to see me control the heat in my pan by bringing the pan on and off the heat. You'll see that technique used today. You want to see that I'm not browning that omelet too quickly. If I overcoagulate the eggs too fast, I'll start getting that browning. And secondly, the browning means that I'm making the proteins too tough, too elastic in those eggs. I'm bringing them up too quickly. So on and off the heat is how I will control that. Secondly, I'm going to put that butter in first, and I want the butter to be completely melted, and I want it to be frothy. And lastly, I want to hear that butter talking to me a little bit. Nothing should be put into a saute pan, or in this case, an omelet pan, without hearing that pan talking to you a little bit, a snapping, a crackling, and a popping sound. So let me make sure I have all my mise en place today. Oh, one thing I want to note is you'll see my French knife here is pointed to the outside, away from me. That prevents me from cutting myself if I leave it here on the center of my cutting board. So you'll always want to put that French knife up there. I think I have everything ready to begin this demo, so let's bring it up. First thing I mentioned was having a consistent medium flame, which I have here. I'm going to go ahead and mount my butter into my omelet pan. And you're probably wondering why I'm using a fork. A classically French trained chef, when they make omelets, will use a fork. That's all that I need, not a spatula. I don't want to taste rubber in my omelet, okay? So as this butter is beginning to melt, we'll look for that snap, crackle, and foaming process that we need to have present before we can mount those eggs into that pan. Now, I've already cracked 3 eggs, as I mentioned. I'm just going to stab those yolks a little bit. And then the Fiend's herbs I'm putting in. I'm going to add my truffle salt, 1 for the pan, 1 for the chef, and my white pepper. I'm going to go ahead and mix all that up. I want to mix this up very well, but not over mix it. Again, over mixing will cause those proteins to become stiff and not give me as fluffy an omelet as I want. So what I'm looking for is I'm looking for the egg to change a little bit of color as I'm doing that. I'll stop for a minute. I still see some of the white not completely mixed in. So vigorously get that in. I'm also incorporating a little bit of air into it as well when I do this. That'll help the fluffiness of the omelet. Won't be so dense that way. And that's gotten to where I want it. So let's see how our butter is doing. Our flame is just right. You can hear the talking of the pan, and you can see the frothiness, the bubbling. So we're beginning to mount our eggs into the pan like this. I want to start bringing the eggs to the center of the pan. I want to move them around a little bit. This edge that looks very thin is going to be very important to us when we begin to roll our omelet. So continue to move those eggs around, bringing the pan on and off the heat. Now I don't want to completely cook my eggs. Why? Because I want a little bit of creaminess when I cut into that omelet. I don't want to undercook them either. All right, we're beginning to get to where we want. Let's get a little bit more done with our eggs. A little bit more heat. Bring those eggs into the center. I'm doing this so I can get the proper consistency of my egg. Now, you can see I have just a little bit of that left. That means the eggs that are not all the way cooked. You can see I'm able to move that omelet, or the beginnings of that omelet, around in the pan. So here's where I begin my folding process. I'll take my fork and I'll grab that leading edge and I'll bring it in like that. Tap it down a little bit. That will help as well when you begin to roll. So now I'm beginning to get these points. You see the points here and here. You'll see I still have some looseness of the egg. That's what we want. Now I'm going to bring my fork underneath and I'm going to get that roll going one more time. Perfect. Now, another technique at the very end of making this omelet, where you would add more ingredients such as cheese or some kind of other protein in, would be to take the pan and tap it down. You're bringing the egg and that nice edge that I was looking for to help roll that omelet. So now that I've got that edge, I want to reach my fork underneath and I want to fold that over like this. Tap it down, seal that omelet up a little bit more here to get that pointed edge. Tap it down. There we go. I, at this point, see no color in my eggs. I'm just moving that point a little closer, tapping it down and sealing it. Perfect. I'm liking what I'm seeing. All right, now, the very last technique that we need to be aware of is moving the pan to the pan, the pan to the plate and the plate to the pan. This is a process that's done in one step. So, again, I tap my pan down to bring my omelet all the way to the edge. Very important so that I don't miss my plate. All the way down, and then this kind of an action. There we go. Now, you'll see that I have 2 points, the classic cigar shape. So I move it into the center. And then now I'm going to cut into that omelet, and I should see just a little bit of ooziness coming out from a properly fired French omelet. So let's see what we can get here. I see a little bit of that egg coming out, slightly coagulated, but not all the way. Still has a nice little sheen to it. And then you're going to see I have some tightly rolled layers here. Look at that, nice and creamy. See that? Should still have a little creaminess to it. Not rolling out like you've broken open a sunny side up egg, but not overly cooked. Now the last thing that we want to do with this omelet is we want to taste it. Again, you have the cigar shape. You have almost completely coagulated, but not all the way coagulated eggs. And And the last thing the chef is going to do is taste that omelet and see if you've passed his test or her test. So let's see what we've got. That's a properly cooked French rolled omelet. The flavors are exquisite. It's still very tender. It's not overcooked, no browning. And I just have to finish this omelet. So again, folks, a French rolled omelet. Thank you.